Welcome to episode 2 of the Burn It Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Navarro. On today's show, we will dive into my N=1 experiment where I try different diets to see what really works. Then, we will discuss how different body types play a big role in determining your approach to fat loss. I'm so pleased to have you with us today. Now, let's start the show.
Burn it. You are not alone as you begin this new stage of life. Learn the strategic methods to reach your goals and flourish the light within. With our guidance, you will uncover the hidden truths that have been missing from your understanding. It's time to let it burn.
Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. Words by George Bernard Shaw. My friend, I want to acknowledge you for taking action, for taking this moment to better yourself. The journey ahead of you can be great. It can show you and the world what amazing things one person can do. Let's begin by addressing the X factor in your story, the X factor that is your mind. It can be the faithful ally that always has your back, there to encourage you and support you when you need it most. Or it can be the birthplace of all the self-sabotage in your life. Throughout history, we've had great inventors and influential visionaries who have progressed our species to its latest heights. People like Henry Ford, who changed the world of transportation by making the personal automobile accessible to the masses. Or Martin Luther King, who helped spark a movement for social equality and shining the light on moral issues our country had, and unfortunately still struggle with. It takes a certain type of person, or should I say a certain type of mind, to be able to make game-changing shifts in culture. And throughout history, these men and women like Ford and King have all shared a certain similarity that was crucial for their accomplishments. They shared the ability to do great things with the help of the mental strength they built up. You see, when applied, your own mind has the power to help you change your own circumstance. But you have to be willing to learn your weaknesses. Learn the key limiting factors that are holding you back and find ways to surpass them. Take a moment to think back into your past struggles with weight loss. Are there any clear mistakes that jump out at you? Maybe it was a crash diet where you practically starved yourself all day. Or maybe you tried an array of different diet pills that made you feel awful. It's important to look back to see what hasn't worked for your body type and realize that maybe it's time to try something different. Sadly, many of us grew up with misguided information, especially about the truths behind healthy fats and the beneficial functions of cholesterol, as well as the disastrous effects of consuming high amounts of refined sugars. Today, we will dive into the real causes of weight gain, which should help straighten out some of those outdated theories. Learning of this rocked my world, but made my journey possible. My health truly improved when I accepted the science that began a mindset shift that revealed a missing factor that was holding me back. When I began my transformation, I began lost and unsure where to start. So, I chose to experiment with various fitness experts' viewpoints, attempting their methods. To track my progress, I went to my local gym to use their body scan machine. This gave my body fat percentage as well as my lean muscle mass. I did this to track what worked best for my body type, making this my own personal experiment, my N=1. An N=1 experiment means that the entire study is done on a single subject or patient. They are helpful in that they can allow us to do studies that would normally be too difficult on larger group studies. So, as I began my experiment, I dove into the research of the different methods to fat loss and discovered that there are a lot of conflicting information. I was so overwhelmed at first, but I realized that the only way I was going to find the right answer was to try some of these different theories. First, I started with methods like the so-called everything in moderation diet. This approach allows you to eat anything you'd like as long as you stay under your calories. I gave it a shot and started counting every single calorie that I ate. And since everything in moderation was the plan, you better believe I fit cookies in my calories. After 3 months of this method, I learned that this didn't work for my body type. Following the mainstream trainer's advice that everything in moderation works as long as you stay under your calories was not the answer. At least not for someone as metabolically damaged as I was. The reality is that bigger endomorph body types like mine will need much more advanced methods to see weight loss. I kept learning and discovered that your body changes through hormone signals that it gets from the type of food you feed it, not just the amount of total calories consumed. I posted the results of my body scan at burnitnutrition.com/N1Expo. There, you can see that I did lose weight at first, but in the 3rd month, I also lost muscle mass and gained back more fat mass. I was essentially starving myself at a cellular level, which caused my metabolism to slow down. Even with all my efforts of calorie counting and constant hunger, I wasn't getting any closer to my goals. After this failed experiment, I decided to go with a whole food, modified paleo approach. This is where I feel I truly began my transformation and started to see progress. I decided to change my thoughts towards food. I began to learn what real nutrition actually looks like. My perspective towards food as just calories was one of the limiting factors that had to be changed. I took on the challenge and began to get rid of all the processed junk, things like chips and sodas, and started to include more fruits, veggies, and healthy proteins. I began to see big improvements in my body scan results, as well as in the mirror. Now, I wasn't just eating healthy, paleo-friendly foods, but also I began to train and hit the gym. This is when people began to really notice I was actually getting in shape, or how I like to say, getting jacked. You can see on my body scans that I was able to maintain my muscle mass while also burning away 12.7 pounds of pure fat mass in the next 2 months. This really improved my aesthetics since I wasn't just burning fat, I was building strength. You see, weightlifting is key to an impressive body transformation since it helps you go from obese to strong and toned. But we will dive further into training and exercise in another episode. I was finally getting closer to my goals, and I had come a long way, but I wasn't done. I kept reading and researching, which led me to discover the ketogenic diet. We have to make this light bulb work. We have to find the right filament. Is it working? How about now? Nothing? Oh. Thomas Edison was another great mind that changed the lives of many. In search of a filament to improve the light bulb, him and his assistant spent countless hours trying 2,000 different materials. And even with all their efforts, nothing seemed to be working well. His assistant finally complained.
"All our work is in vain. We have learned nothing."
Edison replied confidently, "Oh, we have come a long way, and we have learned a lot. We now know that there are 2,000 elements which we cannot use to make a good light bulb." So even though Edison still hadn't found the answer to his problem, he knew they were getting close. He kept experimenting with various filaments, even expensive materials like platinum, that failed because of the high heat. But he stayed driven and finally went on to discover a material that allowed the light bulb to be able to shine for 1,200 hours. He found the solution when he created a durable and longer-lasting bulb using a filament made out of carbonized Japanese bamboo. Yeah, I would have never thought of that either. Makes sense why it would take 2,000 tries. Thomas Edison shows us the importance of staying driven to progress towards our goals, whether that may be weight loss or, like in Edison's case, bringing light into the darkness. I too wanted to keep seeing progress, so I decided to give keto a try. This shift into the ketogenic diet took a total different approach that I had never had tried or even had heard of. One of the big shifts I made in the next 4 months was to cut out almost all the fruit and starchy veggies that I was eating on the paleo diet. In my research, I learned that carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates, are the biggest cause of fat storage, and so they should be reduced. This is where I put my mental strength to the test. I had to accept that carbs were halting my progress, and the fact that I was used to having sugar and carbs all day, every day for most of my life, made the thought of reducing them hard to imagine. When I discovered the brain gets similar stimulation from sugar as it does from cocaine, helped explain why it's so hard to let go of a sugar addiction. At first, going keto was tough. I had to ask myself, how bad do I really want this? Am I willing to make the changes and start a life that goes against the grain? Am I okay with being the one who doesn't eat the same as everyone else? The answer was a clear yes. I wanted to be free of obesity, free of the control that food had on me. I wanted to keep improving myself, and I was willing to make the changes. And if others are willing to go under the knife and get serious surgeries like gastric bypass just to lose weight, then why couldn't I reduce my carbs? If it would help me reach my goals and upgrade my life, then I was willing to give keto a try. At this point of my journey, the true health improving benefits of the ketogenic diet hadn't even crossed my mind. But now, that's one of the main reasons why I love the keto lifestyle. When I first started, weight loss was all I cared about. But as I learned and evolved, overall health became just as important. It's funny how as you grow, you can look back and laugh at certain problems you used to focus on. And as you mature, you learn that some were not as big of a deal as your former self made them out to be. So I decided to give keto a try. Now, what is keto? Keto is short for ketogenic. When you go keto, you reduce your carbohydrates low enough that you allow your body to shift engines, going from a toxic and insufficient sugar burner to a ketone-fueled fat-burning machine. It took some time to adjust, but after the first 2 weeks, I felt a shift in my metabolism that changed everything. I felt like my body was upgraded to first class after years of sitting in the back by the toilets. Keto allowed my insulin levels to drop, opening the gates to fat loss. You see, this big shift in energy happened once my body became fat adapted and was now able to better use the fat on my body as its main fuel source. I had always had issues with what felt like a constant cycle of thinking about my next meal. Well, that finally went away. Keto essentially blunted my hunger without the use of any artificial diet pills. It allowed me to balance out my hormones and effectively transform my body naturally. I had now managed to burn off 60 pounds of pure fat, as well as improve my main health markers. I had come a long way from the start of my body transformation and was truly happy with the results. I noticed big improvement in my overall daily energy and mood. This was most likely from all the healthy fats that were feeding my brain. I know I still have more weight to lose, but I'm not going to wait until I hit my so-called ideal weight to be happy. That's one crucial shift in mentality that I learned along the way. You must enjoy the journey, for it is in the process of your transformation that the important changes will occur. When it's all said and done, those are the inner changes that will make you happy. Learning the best methods for each body type and applying the new research allowed me and the others that I have been helping finally reach our goals. Maybe it's time for your body transformation. I would say that paleo and keto are both great options when choosing a diet for health and fat loss. They fit together nicely since they share core pillars that keep you away from junky fast food. And they both bring you back to healthier homemade meals. The rest really depends on the goals that you have set for yourself. But one thing that was clear in the results of my N=1 experiment is that you want to stay away from crappy, highly processed carbs. Other studies have shown that even smaller amounts of processed food can change the chemical balance of the brain, causing negative mood swings as well as noticeable dips in energy. I also want to clarify that not all carbs have negative effects. You see, vegetables are also a form of a carbohydrate, and so the main source of your carbs should be coming from vegetables. Fresh fruits are also another form of carbs that can be consumed. But remember that certain fruits are very high in sugar, and it may be natural sugar, but it's still sugar. You should see fruit as nature's candy, and so it should be managed with that in mind. For decades, we were told to get our daily 6 to 11 servings of carbs for a balanced diet. We were told that carbs are essential to our survival, but that's just not the case. Cultures have survived and thrived on diets low in carbs. And many people like myself have noticed that long-term weight loss is almost impossible to maintain on high-carb diets. Unfortunately, some trainers sadly still believe carbohydrates should be a primary fuel source when fat loss is your goal. But the latest research coming out is showing otherwise. So, if carbohydrates aren't an essential nutrient, then what are? True essential nutrients are elements that our body needs to function that it cannot make on its own. They are nutrients that we have to provide through the food that we eat. Nutrients like amino acids, which we get from protein, and fatty acids that we get from dietary fat, as well as vitamins and minerals, and we can't forget water. These are the elements your body needs to function properly. But again, just to be clear, there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. Now, it is true that certain parts of the brain do need to use small amounts of glucose to function. So you may be wondering, how would our body get the glucose it needs to fuel certain parts of the brain if we're not consuming carbs? The answer is gluconeogenesis. You see, the body has impressive ways of adapting to survive, and going without carbs was one of the first things our primal bodies would have had to adapt to. You see, when on a low-carb lifestyle, our liver begins the formation of glucose, which provides the body with the amount of sugar it will need, but from a non-carbohydrate source. Another benefit of lowering the carbs you eat is that it will also lower insulin levels. This is a key hormone that needs to be lowered to allow the body to shift to its fat reserves for energy. We will go further into insulin and insulin resistance in the next episode. So, when your fat reserves are burned, they release fatty acids, and with them also come ketones. Ketones are an organic compound that is mainly produced by the liver that has helped humans survive through harsh periods where there was no food available. You see, the human body has been brilliantly designed to function just fine without carbohydrates, but we make them spend most of their efforts in damage control from all the overconsumption of sugars. Giving up on my comfort foods was tough, but looking back at it now, 60 pounds lighter and feeling as good as I do, I'd say it was worth it. It was worth going through the discomforts of change because I didn't just lose weight, I improved my health at a cellular level. A few years ago, I got a few days to take a winter trip up to the mountains of Central California. We left from Los Angeles and drove up to the Mammoth Mountains for some fun on the slopes. I had the pleasure of staying at a friend's cabin, walking distance from the lifts. We made sure to wake up early, eager to start our day on the mountain. I poured us a cup of coffee and stepped out to the chilly morning air to get a feel for the weather. I was beyond pleased to see nothing but blue skies, what we like to call a bluebird day. I laced up my boots and zipped up my jacket, but considering the light rays shining through the window, I made the decision of leaving my face mask. We grabbed our boards and headed out the door. We wanted to be the first ones on the slopes. We went straight to the chairlift that would take us to the very top of the mountain. As we got higher and higher, I noticed a thick, dark cloud waiting for us at the top. That's when it hit me that I didn't consider a possible weather change at the top of the mountain. I know, rookie mistake, right? Let's just say I had a purple nose and frozen beard for most of the day. But I definitely learned my lesson. My mountaintop challenged me, but it doesn't compare to Sir Edmund Hillary's mountaintop. On the 29th of May, 1953, he was the first man in recorded history to reach the top of the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. Except he didn't have a chairlift to take him to the top of the 29,000-foot summit. He climbed to the top of Everest on his own strength. He would go on to be knighted by Queen Elizabeth II for his great accomplishments and seen as a hero by his country. But we don't get the full story of his battle with this monster of a mountain from the end result. You see, he had attempted to climb up Everest a year before, but failed and was forced to give up and turn back. If he didn't, he would have surely died a bitter cold end on the tops of the world. A few weeks after this failed attempt to climb the world's tallest mountain, he was asked to give a speech where he walked on stage to a thunderous applause. The audience was acknowledging his brave attempt at greatness, but deep inside, he saw himself more as a failure. He began his speech, but for a moment he stopped and moved away from the podium, walking to the very edge of the stage. He turned and raised his arm, pointing at the wall where the picture of the great mountain was displayed. And with a loud and powerful voice he said, "Mount Everest, you beat me the first time, but I'll beat you the next time because you've grown all you're going to grow. But I'm still growing." Just like this man's determination to reach the peaks of our planet, so too should be your determination to reach your goals. If you failed once, then get up, get focused, and move forward. It won't be easy, but with the correct strategies, no heights are unreachable. It's important to learn that the body type you have plays a big factor in determining your approach to weight loss. There are 3 different body types. First, the ectomorph, which are tall and leaner. Then, we get the mesomorphs. They're about average height with increased muscular physique. And finally, there are the endomorphs. These body types are shorter and a bit more stockier. Not everyone falls perfectly into these body types. There could be a genetic blend of the two. Now, different body types process certain foods better. Usually, ectomorphs, the tall and lean, tend to handle carbs a bit more efficiently. They are your skinny friends who eat all the nasty junk food and don't seem to get fat. One thing that these types of people should keep in mind is that being thin isn't always an indication of health. Unfortunately, there are several cases of thin people with issues like cancer and other serious diseases. Even though lean ectomorph body types don't put on weight easily, they will still be getting the negative effects from processed foods. They may not show obvious signs, usually because these types of people have stronger immune systems, which allow them to go on as if there are no ill effects. But if we look closer, their bodies are still having to fight all the negative effects that are caused by consuming processed and refined foods. And in time, it may catch up to them. Now, the stockier endomorph system generally function much better on a lower carb approach. This is because their metabolisms usually run at a lower rate, or they have developed insulin resistance due to years of lousy food choices and inactivity. I firmly believe that no matter the body type, no diet should encourage low-quality sources of carbohydrates, like processed junk that comes from a factory. So, differences in body type is why diet plans work for some and not for others. But don't think that you're stuck with no way to upgrade. It's definitely possible to improve yourself with the right methods and determination. If avoiding certain cancers is a priority of yours, then listen up. Did you know that cancer cells have a sweet tooth? Well, they do. Cancer cells use glucose as a fuel source, which they get from carbohydrates. They need the glucose to grow and multiply. Here's a fun fact for the day. When a doctor runs an MRI scan to detect for any cancer cells, they inject the patient with tagged glucose. This glucose is quickly consumed by cancer cells, causing their monitors to light up like a Christmas tree, and thus identifying their location. Don't you think that should be an alarming clue to the dangers of consuming high amounts of sugars? The good news is that when you become ketogenic, you shift the body's main fuel source from glucose to ketones, This starves and weakens the cancer cells since they don't have the ability to use ketones as a fuel. Only healthy cells have the ability to use ketones. Now, I'd say that's definitely good news for the battle against cancer. We have reached the segment of the show where we talk about some yummy options. So what's on the menu today? Today we will talk about other options for bread. Ooh. Trust me, I know the feeling of being on a low-carb lifestyle and seeing that bread basket come around. Bread has become a big part of our culture, and being fully honest, I would hate to go the rest of my life without it. But the reality is that the bread that we get in our grocery store is packed with sugar and gluten that can have some negative effects on our body. Certain grains also contain anti-nutrients like phytic acids that impair the absorption of minerals like iron and zinc, leading to mineral deficiencies. Not to mention, the glycemic index of whole wheat bread can be as high as 70. So, what options do we have if we want to get healthy and still try to enjoy some parts of the dark side? The answer is homemade almond and coconut flour breads. They allow you to still have a delicious slice of bread without all the negative effects mentioned above. They will be much lower in carbs and higher in healthy fats that make you feel full and satisfied without the blood sugar spikes. So, here's what you do to make this delicious cinnamon pecan bread. First, you will preheat the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit and butter your baking pan. Make sure it's really well buttered. Then, mix in the dry ingredients in a big bowl. First, you will get 1 cup almond flour, 1 cup coconut flour, ½ cup low-carb protein powder, 1/4 cup psyllium husk powder, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, 1 tablespoon of stevia, 1 teaspoon of sea salt. Next, we're going to place the wet ingredients in a high-speed food processor. We're going to get 5 pastured eggs, 2 cups heavy cream, 6 tablespoons melted butter, 1 teaspoon pure vanilla extract, and we're going to blend for about 30 seconds. Next, you will add the dry mixture to the food processor. Best to do half at a time. Once it's fully mixed, you're going to pour your mixture into the pan and spread evenly. Then, sprinkle some dashes of cinnamon, scatter some pecans, or maybe some sliced almonds on top. Lastly, scatter some berries, a small amount of course, and place in your oven for about 45 to 55 minutes. And voila! You'll have a great option that won't spike your sugar. You can then spread full-fat cream cheese or almond butter and enjoy. This should satisfy your desires for bread and still be aligned with your goals. But remember to only see this as a solution to those bread cravings. Try to stick with real whole food for the majority of your weight loss journey. I hope you found some good takeaways from this episode of the Burn It Nutrition podcast. We want to make health and weight loss fun and interesting to listen to. I know how it feels to think that weight loss is impossible. I've been there. Last year I was 280 pounds with 40% body fat, but with the strategies I learned, I was able to lose 60 pounds of pure fat in just 7 months while keeping all of my muscle mass. My journey got much smoother once I learned the correct methods that worked for my body type. Controlling my consumption of sugar allowed me to become a fat-burning machine that really advanced my progress. So friends, continue to hold on to whatever is igniting your passion and burn it deep inside you. Truly consider this path to reach your goals. It can make your transformation much more attainable. Trust me, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Again, I am not special. You can also improve your health, but you have to be willing to make the changes in your perspective, shifts in mindset that will allow you to let go of the old beliefs and accept the new research that shows the true benefits of healthy fats and the toxic effects of excess sugar. If you want to start your own transformation, then click on the link in the show notes that says Reach 5th Stage Keto. Or you can go straight to our website at burnitnutrition.com and get my body transformation guide called 5th Stage Keto. This is a step-by-step guide that will give you the strategic methods that I use to help you reach your weight loss goals. Learn how to apply the correct training methods for the most attractive physique. Get the stages to smoothly apply effective intermittent fasting. And get the tricks to push past some of those weight loss plateaus. We are currently running a 50% off special for the release of this podcast, so I'd get it while it's still available. I hope you join us on the next show. It won't be the same without you. Now brace yourself, because it's time to let it burn.
Please note that the Burn It Nutrition podcast is for educational purposes only and is not meant to substitute for the advice of a doctor. Please consult your GP before using any of the techniques or products discussed on